All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got the legendary Alan Feuer. Hey, we're going to be discussing SOPs because I know that for a while I've been following people that have highly recommended your SOPs. And I've run into situations, and the reason I made the post, usually it's something got triggered that I made the post. I get a call from a good friend who's in the business, really close, and he says he got a friend that somebody was trying to sell him some pre-made SOPs because he's desperate to grow. I mean, he's like,
hmm
he's in desperation. He wants to grow. He doesn't know how to grow, doesn't know any of this corporate stuff, and somebody offered to sell him a set of SOPs and for like, I don't know, a couple grand. And I said, look, you know, who's the person? Okay, so this is a person who's also in a bunch of groups selling SEO services also, and people that have used them are not very happy with his SEO service. I said, look, you can't just buy SOPs with no coaching, no training, nothing to monitor, no KPIs, and expect that a set of SOPs in your hand is kind of like if I hand you my pest control manual and you don't know anything about pest control, there's no way you can follow it. You still need some type of direction. So it's a guideline, but it isn't like definitive where you're buying a video series of how to. And I know that you've done this, and they're a pain in the butt because I've done them and I'm doing them, and they're super hard. And
hmm
so I wanted for you to talk about that because I'll probably shut up for the next hour and just let you talk about it.
Well, I do hope we have a dialogue because I don't want to bloviate and just do a lecture here. But I'm fully on track with SOPs. I will sell them. It's not my business model. They're usually sold on request and on referral. And I'll leave that there for right now because that's not what I'm interested in doing. That's not the point of this. If people
Right.
find value, that's great. My intentionality, my original idea when it came to SOPs, this all comes from the late great Lloyd Smigel. Hopefully, that's a name that you've heard and many of the
Yes.
listeners have heard. So I'm going to tip my hat. And I got the Holy Spirit goosebumps right there, man, because this man was really important to me. I spent most of my time in his presence from the late '90s through the early 2000s. And I was introduced to him via articles in some of the magazines, and then he taught in New Mexico, and then I joined something that he was doing that's been kind of sort of picked up a little bit via like Pest Cemetery Live or some of Paul Bellows stuff, where he had these discovery retreats, and you came in with your colleagues from non-competing markets, and you came in and you shared ideas. And one of the things that we did was standard operating procedures, and Lloyd's take on the standard operating procedures is very simple is we can't assume that people understand what need how to do something. So we should write it down. And there are things that we don't need it to explain how to put toilet paper on the toilet paper dispenser over the top, under the bottom. Maybe it sits on the counter. Is there even toilet paper there? That's not. We're gonna waste our time with that stuff. But
Right.
we have to get down to the important stuff of running any operation. Okay, and I couple that with programmed instruction that I learned in the United States Marines, okay, from being victimized. I mean, benefited by their training, you know what I'm saying? And so I observed it. I was actually an active participant in receiving the development, and standard operating procedures are part of a defined structured development program, and they define exactly what you're going to do in a certain event. And the key to a standard operating procedure is don't make it bigger than it needs to be, but use that SOP writing process. So I'm just use SOP the rest of the day. This is a mouthful. SOP
Yeah.
writing process to ensure that you're catching all the important components of whatever function you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Okay. And you take it one bite at a time. It's like eating an elephant, man. You just have to eat it one bite at a time, both in the creation and in the comprehension of and use thereof. So to your point, when we opened up this conversation, here's our packet of SOPs, and you literally have to digest them. If I was to give you my SOPs, remember they apply to our company, Preventive Pest Control, Albuquerque, New Mexico, in our environment, in our business model. Now, there's probably things that can relate to what you
Right.
would do in the greater Miami area. There's certain fundamental principles that they're principles because you really can't take away or add to them. There they are. But your ant species are different. The construction is different. The humidity is different. The governmental requirements are different. So all those things are different. So you have to take an SOP, even if you purchase a skeleton from somebody else, you better read it and make it apply. And it's a great exercise, if you will, for somebody who would buy them. They better, to your point again, you don't just buy them, stick them under your pillow and hope they matriculate into your brain and your soul in that manner, if that makes sense. You
Yeah.
have to work them.
I mean, we're doing SOPs now because I mean, this guy's been working with me now. My media guy, and he does the producing for all this podcast, does all our social media, anything that has to do with SEO on social media, he does it. And we're entering into new things we want to do. But every time we enter in it, we realize, oh, here's a problem here, here's a problem there. So we find all the problems. And what I'm good at is that he has to focus on the production. I'm good at the R&D part. That's where I really shine, but I'm terrible at the final detail execution stuff to keep doing it day by day. Once that's done, I don't want to touch it anymore. I'm tired. And what I find with the three things that I think I find with most people that are in this situation is they're desperate to grow, because they literally walked off a truck, went in to become a solopreneur with no management experience. I mean, at least if you have management experience or sales experience, but usually it's just the technical experience. And what we assume that if we just take care of our customers, the business is going to grow. And this is where they run into a problem when they hit 150, 200,000, and now they need to hire their first guy and they've never hired a person. And that's where the conversation usually starts. And somebody will say, well, just do this, do that. What I find with SOPs, in my own experience of creating them for everything that we're doing now, we have maybe 20 disciplines in SEO, is that I still have to sit here every morning at 9:30 in the morning with Eric, have a meeting, and say, what did you encounter in this problem? He says, well, I encountered this doesn't make sense. We hit a bro here. We need to modify this, and it's a working, living document that we're upgrading. And if Google changes anything tomorrow, we have to go in there now and modify this. And this is where, if you're already working 60 hours a week and you're tired and you have no money, you fall prey for something easy button, and it just isn't there. It just doesn't exist. I think there's a lot of work that has still got to go in it, where I'm teaching a master class on SEO, and these guys are like, I sometimes I got to slow it down because I feel like they're going to drink out of a fire hydrant.
Oh, sure. That's exactly when we talk about if you were to buy standard operating procedures, I want to be very clear too, is that you're talking about standard operating procedures for search engine optimization. I'm going to be speaking to them on pest management operations, training and development, administration and logistics and things like that. I'm a dope when it comes to SEO. I don't handle that for our company at all. We've got other people that handle that. So I just want to be very clear to the listener. If they're listening for SEO tips from me, you're not going to get any, and anything that I might say about SEO, you really should reject that and listen to somebody smarter than me. But I'm all about that development of people operationally. So, but yeah, and the key is to think it through. And you said something very important earlier about people get out. They get out of a truck and they're a technician, they start their own company. And that's, God bless that, man. That's what's great about America. You have every right to do that. If you think you're, and this isn't aside from the course here, but this is a Dave Ramseyism as well. And even at Lloyd Smigelism, if you think your boss is a jerk, go ahead and do it better and prove him wrong. You prove that he's doing it wrong and start your own. So I love the fact that people would do that. But then they actually come up against what the military would be called the main line of resistance, right? Which is, the reality smacks you in the face. Yeah, you know how to spray pesticides or maybe identify bugs or be cool to your customers. But now what, right? And that's, to me, where standard operating procedures come in. And I would tell anybody that's an individual operator, no matter where, what part of the country in, what your discipline is in pest management, start writing them now as a single operator. Because when you get your first person, you've got something to lean on. And that's where a lot of discipline has to occur. You're going to try your discipline, your personal discipline, by doing this writing. Okay. And what you're doing is you're holding yourself accountable to the standard operating procedures. You also said something very important earlier too, Franklin, is that these are living documents. You can't chisel. You don't want them chiseled in stone. You don't even want them. In this day and age, you don't even want them written on paper. Even though you can print them on paper, and that's handy. You have them in an electronic file, and you update them. And what we do with our standard operating procedures is we have an acronym that starts at basic training. It's called UROC, UROC. Understand the material, which we help them with. Right? It's not like here, read this, but understand it, and we teach them. We say, okay, let's walk you through a SOP, retain the information in your brain. And by the way, that's what the SOP is for. What's an SOP for? Well, you have a handy reference. Okay, we're going to go do fleet control and blah, blah, blah. Here are the steps on one page. Okay, go retain that. Obey it. Don't violate it. Okay, and that's real important for your trainers as you build your company. Well, I know that's what Alan says to do as the technical director, but that's nonsense. And here's what I do. Well, no, that's in violation of the ethos of what we're talking about. But we give them the last letter C, which means complain. If you don't like the way an SOP is rolling, don't just stab us in the back and do your own thing. Say, hey, Alan, or Dominic, or whoever who's the people in our positions in our company that would detail these things. I have a problem with this. I think there's a better way to do it. Or, by the way, you dummies forgot to make a change. We abandoned using Phantom, and now we're using Alpine WSG, but you didn't change the SOP, so you guys got to fix that.
Right.
And no one gets in trouble for that, man. That's the healthy environment of our operation. You're allowed to complain. Okay, it's not complaining. It's hot. It's humid. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like this SOP is it contradicts itself, and or because I've been out there as a technician, I think we can do this better. And this is a great opportunity when we bring seasoned people that come into our company from other places. We don't say, hey, come in and rewrite our SOPs. We say, hey, hang out here, get an understanding of how this company operates. And I definitely want to hear from you. When I get someone's got an ace or something like that, it's been 20 years in the industry and they worked in Texas and Hawaii. And this is a real example. Hey, spend about 3 months here, and then I want to hear everything you got to tell me. And then I'm going to be honored to make some changes based upon what I can learn from you. So we have to have that open-mindedness as well. Yeah. And we want to check with many outside sources as well. I mean, internally in the company, but so I'm writing from a technical point of view, but if we go to our customer service representatives, hey, so-and-so, does this make sense to you from where you sit and what the customers are calling in? And then we take it, of course, to our office manager, our general manager. Is this making sense what we're doing here? So you have to test your SOPs, and you modify them. And then when you modify them, I think you talked about it when there's a change to SEO, you had better train your people. There's a change to the SOP. And this doesn't have to be a 4-hour workshop on a singular SOP. It can be a 15-minute update, man. Hey, everybody, go to your Google Drive, pull up the SOP on this. You'll notice there's some changes. Let me explain what that means to you. In this case, we've abandoned using Phantom. If you got Phantom, turn it into the cage. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to use Alpine WSG. But you know what? I think most of you guys are doing that already. So we missed that mark. We just want to make sure. And that's a 5-minute announcement, or we can do it on our Facebook page, or we can do it on a group email. So there's a way to make those changes on SOPs.
Yeah. When people think of SOPs, they're not, since you don't know what you don't know. So you're making the assumption that, I say, okay, now which SOP do you need? Because if your SOP is for the call center, you have to create an SOP for that person answering the phone. Mm-hmm. You got to create an SOP for marketing. You got to create an SOP for accounting.
Right.
Everything requires an SOP. And then where the error is, if I just read the book, go to the seminar, buy the program, I'm just going to grow my business. And this is the biggest fallacy, because everybody has gotten used to some type of app that instantly gives you gratification.
Right.
And this isn't growing a business is like pissing glass. In most cases, that's the only way I can put it, kind of delicately, but you've got to have the time to devote to the nurturing and the creation of those SOPs. Yeah. They're just not going to walk on their own. And the desperation is where I'm always seeing. So I say, look, which SOP, I get, because this is the common call I get. Every business that starts up struggles from this. They need marketing to generate leads that turn into sales to generate cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, so walk me through your sales process. Just tell me what your sales process. Well, I answer
Mm-hmm.
the phone and then I give them a quote. Well, I said,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a sales process.
Well, to them it is.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's in a simplistic
yeah,
manner. It says,
right.
how are you creating SOPs then
Mm-hmm.
in the sales process to say, okay, how do we upsell the client? How do we,
Right.
we do this, then we do this, then we do this. If if IFTTT, if then that, this is just common. I learned that when I was like 14, when I was coding in BASIC.
It's funny you
Okay.
say that because that my brain, as soon as you start talking about that, it's the if then principle. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. But you've written a one switch program. Answer the phone, give them a quote. Okay, well, what if this happens? Then what do you do? And so that to the point you're making, that's where you've got to be. And there's a balance too, because you cannot. So as much of a proponent I am of a written standard operating procedure, you still got to behind that have just nuance and human intellect, and you can't write every possibility down. What
Right.
you have to do is kind of get the generalities of what you're doing with that. So when the phone rings, how do you answer the phone? Okay. And then how do you take a message, right? Do we just basically write something on a post-it note and stick it on a wall and hope that somebody observes it? Or do we utilize a phone system? Do we email somebody something? Do you text people? There's all these options. And again, it's not all one size fits all. Whatever your operation is. When I joined our company 13 years ago, they were posted. I thought we were going to just catch on fire with all the post-it notes that were floating around. And I was watching. I'm like, this is a horrific way to do this, because now you have all this opportunity for failure in the process. That's a lot of what standard operating procedures are designed for, is to mitigate a lot of the choke points, the fail points in some of the processes that we do. And it doesn't mean mistakes aren't going to happen. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves.
Right.
That despite our best efforts to write SOPs and to provide proficiency in the development of people through those SOPs, there has a discipline line that has to be there as well. And we've got SOPs on discipline. We've got SOPs on what happens when someone doesn't do something correctly, and I always want to think about, and this is the Marine in me, I'm more about self-discipline than bringing discipline upon people. But we talk about there's a disciplined effort that you have to follow, and that has to be part of your company DNA, right? And so if we can talk SOPs all day long, and we can write them and people can buy them, but it has to start with the leader of the leadership, or even the individual leader of a company, deciding that we're going to do this. Right. And this has merit, and it's not like, oh, well, makes me feel good that we've got these things written. And so it's got to be something that's looked out and maintained all the time, to your point. Okay. Yeah. So you'll talk SEO. That's fantastic. I'll talk pest management operations and development of people, because that's my passion, is to see people develop. So
yeah, no, what I find in every conversation that I'm there, because I mean I do mostly pest control training. SEO is something I've been doing for 10 years, but I decided to do it for my own company because I do have a technical background in programming and in systems and in point of sales. And this is something that came easy to me, and I found out I could do it better than any agency could, to about a 3x capacity in-house. But what I see with every conversation that I'm having and every consultation that I'm getting, usually from solo operators that need, like I said, we're just dealing with this simple, and you'll probably be able to talk to this to extent, is the issue of complexity that is added when you just bring another person on board and you have no plan how to onboard them, how to train them. You're going to just hope that that person is going to catch on. And most of the time what people really want, because they don't have the SOPs and they don't have the time to develop, is they keep hiring people from the industry, from other companies, bringing them in and saying, I just don't have to train you now. I can just let you go because you already know pest control. And I think that's the single biggest mistake that is costing them so many headaches, because they don't want to go through the process of hiring, onboarding, prospecting. It's just much easier to grab somebody and say, here. And then what I find, for me, it's a huge nightmare. Especially if you don't have all of those processes in place.
Yeah, well, we can talk about hiring very briefly here, and I'll do a plug for something that's going to happen. Obviously, Maria Sorrentino has been on your podcast a couple of times. We actually are going to have it's basically our little group's called Lead People Manage Stuff. We've done several things. Maybe she's talked about it, but we've got the next one coming up is on hiring, onboarding, and development. And that's going to be up in Kalamazoo, but I'll let Maria speak to that. You can maybe tag her or bring her back on and she can plug for that. But
Yeah.
what I would say about when you bring people on, what you said is very important. I'm not one of those people like, well, I don't want people that have never worked in the industry before, because they've got their bad habits, and that's probably true. There's probably some things that I do to I've been with Preventive for 13 years. I'm in my 35th year of pest control right now, so I had 22 years of experience beforehand. Well, and I'm certain I've vexed the top management of our company. But I like to think I vex them by challenging them to be excellent. And I think they would probably tell you that as well. So that's their thing. But I would tell you that there's going to be value to be bringing people on from other organizations, free agents, if you will. I consider myself, I'm like that old, I'm going to use a football metaphor, and it's incorrect. I'm a defensive player, but I'm like that old 33-year-old tight end that always catches that first down pass. I'm Gronk or somebody like that. So you bring these people on that they're solid, they're ball control guys. And so that's the kind of people you want to bring in your organization, but they better learn your playbook. So if I want to finish the football metaphor, they first have to learn your playbook. They know how to play football or pest control. They know how to do that game, but they don't know your game. They don't know your playbook. They don't know how the ball comes off your quarterback's hands. They don't know their role, blocking, dump passes, things like that. You better understand that. Then you go, okay, well, here's something you might want to work on. So that's bringing people on. But then the assumption is made, just because they're hired and we give them a salary, that they're gonna operate effectively, and that's the mistake. And so what we have to do is that's that hire slow, fire fast, or hire hard, manage easy. So to me, the hiring is not just, hey, I'm giving you a job offer. Here's your HR packet. Here's your first paycheck, and you work here. Here's your uniforms and your truck. To me, that process is going to happen even with a veteran over at least 90 days, if not 6 months, probably longer with a veteran, and let them know that. I may not keep you around. I'm not going to, I wouldn't sign a contract to somebody like me. I'd say, hey, I want you to, let's find out how that's going to go. And if it's not working, we're going to part ways and shake hands. But that tells them they've got to integrate into the organization and bring the benefit. But at the same time, it goes the other way around. I'm at that stage in my career, and probably so are you and many people that you cohort with. When I go to an interview, I don't, and it's going to sound arrogant, it's just confidence and belief in myself. You can ask me all the questions you want. I'm deciding if I want to work for you. Okay. That's where I'm at. And so it goes both ways. And so we have that open-minded thing. How's this going to fit? So if you're going to bring me in and you have an expectation of this, okay, well, that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm going to look for in an organization is organization. I'm looking for an organization that wants to develop, wants to be the best in the area. And everyone's got that right to use, marketing puffery. We're the best. Okay, that's not a lie. At least they can believe that. But I really want to be able to prove that, right? I want to measure that. You talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. You have to be able to measure why you'd say you're the best. And of course, those are broad and wide. We could talk about that a little bit today, but certainly not the point of this thing here today. But you have to give people a foundation of where we're going. And then you said something important, and this is something I talk about all the time when I'm consulting with people, and I'm during the courses I do with Maria. Is we make assumptions that people understand, and then they agree to do what we want them to understand. We make that mistake. Your body language tells me you totally understand it. We make assumptions, and we have to prove that. So that's part of too. So like I told you, training and development, program instruction, you have to prove, hey, here's the standard operating procedure. Around the standard operating procedure, guess what lives around those as well? And this is the meat of what I want to talk about. If you have an SOP and then you don't develop lesson plans to complement those, and actually course material, which could be videos, pictures, classroom lectures, hands-on things, and of course field training, you're wasting your time. Don't even bother writing an SOP if you're not going to go behind it. And I listed this on that Facebook post. You got to have all these items behind it, but also you have to do is you have to challenge it through testing. And the testing could simply be a written test. It could be some sort of a game that you play, or simply could be proficiency. It's called, in the Marines, we call it practical application. Can this guy literally put rounds through his rifle and strike this target? And under these circumstances, and the answer is yes or no. Right. And if no, can we get them to that point in a reasonable amount of time, or do we have to go in a different direction? Okay.
Right.
And then what we have to assess there, and this is being specific, and we can beat this up if you want. Was our training appropriate for them? That's plank and spec, as Jesus would say, right? I mean, are we failing them? Was their trainer well trained? Do we train the trainer? We have an SOP on that, by the way. Train the trainer.
Right.
The process on that. Number one, did that work? Number two, how do they learn? Adult education. Not everybody's going to. Most people aren't going to sit there and just read a piece of paper and get it. Okay, you're going to have to give them images and videos. Then you have to go to the field and do it. So these guys are getting trained 14 ways from Sunday. Then we have to make a decision after that. Let's assume all the material is there, and that's one of my roles as technical director. It's all there. It's being passed on as I get ready to retire. It's being passed on to other people in the organization. Are we delivering that? Yes. Okay. Do we give them the time? Yes. Great. And now we have to decide: is this person able to absorb this information and respond to the training?
Right.
Okay. And is it basically, are they stuck because of their proficiency or their abilities, or is it an attitude problem? Is it a discipline issue?
Right.
And that's where we're going. So that's kind of the big picture. When SOPs are great, but they're just a piece of paper. You've got to breathe life into them. It's like the 10 Commandments. Here they are, chiseled on a tablet, or they're on a scroll or something like that. Right. They mean nothing unless you live them. And the same thing happens to happen with your SOPs. And the SOPs themselves are not going to be everything. SOPs are like big picture principles, and then behind that's a lot more, policies and practices and things like that. We can alliterate this all day with the P. We can pee everywhere, Franklin. We can have P's everywhere. So
no, I agree. I mean, this is, as a corporate trainer, and before, and this and sales training and management training that I used to do, what the resistance that I see from a lot of these guys, that and I usually will be a little hard on them, because I left the corporate world, and I left the mentality is I left the business, working for a big company or looking, because of all this BS. This is, again, going back to the oversimplification of what it's going to be like until they hit that wall. And they're basically scoffing at it most of the time. I mean, if you're ever in the smaller groups, where you're in the individual solo groups, is, I've been, a solo operator for 20 years. This is nonsense. I don't need any of this. Well, that's great for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you want to grow and you have that attitude and you have the pushback, you're going to find out that when you hit that wall, usually it's too late. My admonishment is, start doing it now. Like you said, start writing everything down. When you're in that truck, at least you have a journal of something that you're doing, and you're literally journaling it, so that when, it's like preparation meets opportunity. I can't find anyone to hire, and when I do hire them, they don't want to stay, and it's a nightmare. It says, well, you failed somewhere along the way, because I can find people. Yes, it's a pain. It took me 6 months to find one guy. But I found them, and when I get them, I can easily train them on all this, because I have SOPs.
Yeah, what you can mitigate with that, Franklin, to your point, and probably to my point as well, and to any of those that would agree with what we're saying here. And I love dissent, I love conversation, so I always want to learn something, So what you're saying, and it's absolutely true, is you've prepared your fields to receive rain, right? You've prayed for rain to come, but you didn't prepare for the fields to receive it. So when you've got everything organized, there it is. And often people take a look, I can't find a good person. That may be true, but once you have somebody, are you ready? Are you ready for that person? Right.
Right.
And my heart breaks, because I started my own company in 1996 and ran it for 9 years and sold it. So I'm not just this guy that's always been part of a bigger organization. Right. My first pest control company, by the end of my first summer, the people left were the scheduler, the boss, and me, because one person quit and one person got fired, right? So we had a small company, but we grew it. And even then I was like, well, let's think about how we want to do this. And when we bring new people on. So I was blessed to kind of have that opportunity with that company, and just took it into mine, following Lloyd's ideas and what I learned in the Marines. But the thing is, you've got to have that, and you have to have the discipline, because here's the thing is, all people say, well, yeah, it's not working out with my new admin person, or my CSR, or my tech. And I'm like, well, most likely, and this is the Marine Corps leadership adage, it's probably your fault. Well, no, it's them. And I says, no, well, yeah, you might have made a bad hire. So I'm saying, hire slow, hire hard, and you better find out in those first 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 months, whether this person has any desire to be part of your organization. And you're going to find that out real quick. And that's a whole nother topic. But the thing is, do you have a process to take them to the next steps, or are you just winging it? If you're winging it, okay, well, your success rate's probably going to be about 10%. Because what you're going to do is you're going to find the unicorn. You're going to find that self-starter that's got their act together, and probably you're not going to be paying them enough.
Right.
I can walk in and self-start in any pest control company in the contiguous 48 states, and I wouldn't mind going to Hawaii. I wouldn't know what to do in Alaska. That'd be weird, but that could be kind of cool. Chasing. You have moose, not mice? Yes, well, I have a moose in the garage. Anyway, having fun with that one. But I could go anywhere in the 48 states, and once I'd have to figure out, okay, what's the key pest issue? What's the economy like? What are some of the laws and regulations that may be different? Oh, how does my boss want to be talked to? How do my customers, I picture myself going cattywampus across the country and going up to like Maine or New Hampshire. That's like a whole different human being up there. But pest management principles stay the same.
Right.
Now I'm a self-starter, but the thing is, you're going to have to pay me 6 figures. And most pest control companies, if they're hiring their second or third person, they're not going to do that. But you won't need SOPs for me. But that's not the person you're looking to hire. You're looking to hire somebody, and they might have. You're looking to hire somebody for half my salary, and they're probably not a self-starter. And if you find somebody that's a self-starter, God bless you. Right. But that's just a stroke of luck.
Yeah.
When you do standard operating procedures and you have processes for your company, you take out that requirement for luck. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. You've got that opportunity to take people to the next step. And SOPs are not just functional things, whether it's, again, how to make a phone call sale, how to put money in the bank, how to do SEO, or for me, how to kill German cockroaches. It's also, my SOPs are like, hey, how do we train the trainers? And then how do we train those individuals? And how do we do QA on them? And how do we check them off and move through what we use a thing called a proficiency chart? How do we move them through the proficiency chart? And what's the value as we move them along that way as well? So,
no, man, I sitting here, I'm like listening to all this, and it does remind me of corporate. But the thing is, I've had to incorporate all of that I knew into my business because that's what I knew. Yeah. And I was in management since I was 19. So I got to learn things early on that most people don't have. Like, I'm getting on my daughter right now. She's 13, just to give you an example. She's 13 years old. She's 14. She's going to be 15 in November. She's just dying to get her first job. She's already got her driver's license manual, and she's excited about driving and getting her own car and making her own money so she can, because she's very independent. My son, on the other hand, I got to drag him everywhere. And I got kids who are 20-something years old who still don't have a driver's license.
Oh, that DNA. What an interesting mess.
Right. Yeah.
So also difference.
So one of those things is like, if to your point is, she's a self-starter. She's going to go on and say, look, you want to get the experience as early as you can, because she wants to get into biomedical engineering. I mean, she's 14. Dear God. I mean, she's got the grades. She's straight A student. I don't have to tell her to get up. She gets up on her own. I don't have to.
Excited to live life every day, man.
Yeah.
How nice is that?
Yeah. And then, so to me, that's amazing. I said, get the experience and get all that, because by the time you graduate from college, you would have had the work ethic, the work experience. You're much more attractive, and those are the things. So I get a lot of people that apply, and the issue is they have none of this experience, including, I had a guy that I hired who was 30-something years old, and I assumed he knew how to clean a car. I look inside that car, my truck, it was a mess. And I said, what happened here? He says, what do you mean? I clean. I says, this is what you consider clean? This is a mess. And he says, this is how I always clean my car. I don't know any other way to. And so I figured out I needed an SOP on how to clean your car.
Right. Yeah, we probably don't go that far. I mean, to stay on that topic, Franklin, we do have a what's expected of you when your truck's going to be inspected, and we say, and we don't get into the nitty gritty. Well, get the armor all and get this. I'm like, look, clean your truck, okay, but also focus on this, because as a technical director says, and I get in trouble. This is where I get in trouble. I says, here's the thing, guys. I says, I'm gonna say something. This is not the gospel, though. if I roll up on you as a technical director, I really don't give a crap if you've armor all your tires, right? And you've got mud on the mud flaps, because you're out in the field working. I'm a working guy, so I get it. I don't care about that. What I do care about is that all your tools are on your truck. They're all where they're supposed to be. You can find them, right? They're all in working order. Your flashlight's got batteries in it, right? You've got extra batteries. You've got all your PPE, and all your chemicals, all your pesticides are appropriately labeled, stored, and upright, and locked. And you have everything you're supposed to have, and you got your rodent traps and all that. That's what I'm going to roll up on. And hand to God, if you're screwed up on that one, you're going to hear it from me. I don't give a crap if you got some dirt on your mud flaps, and if you got a McDonald's bag or a coffee cup in the cab. I don't care about that. Now, if it's a rat's nest in there, I'm like, hey, dude, so what do we teach in basic training? Because again, we've got SOPs for basic training. We teach them 5 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week. 5 minutes a day to throw away your dead rodents and throw away your trash that you collected, whether it's in your trash barrel in the back or in the cab of your truck. It takes 5 minutes at the end of your day, right? And then 30 minutes, which that one day 5 is included in the 30, clean your truck and restock your crap. That's it. That's it. So you're looking at 30 minutes and then 50 minutes a week, less than 1 hour, and your truck's organized. And we teach that, and we let them know what the expectation is. The whole point of SOP, and what I love what you just said, is I assumed he knew how to clean a vehicle, right? And so I get that. Now, we won't go that far. Like I told you, it's kind of the toilet paper thing. I don't care if it's over the top, over the bottom. I just like toilet paper to be in the bathroom, so we're not having to drip dry or do some sort of crab walk to clean up our things and stuff like that. But the bottom line, though, is the same thing with the vehicles. I care that it's functionally operational. I'll use the term battle ready. Is your vehicle battle ready? I don't care about spit. And that's something I rejected in the Marines. When we got into the nitty gritty, nobody gave a crap if your boots were scuffed or if your brass was shined. Nobody gave a crap. But you better have your weapon. It better be working. You better have ammunition. You better have all your stuff. You needed to engage the enemy. That was the end of that. And all that other, pardon my language, okay, we call it chicken shit. We don't need the chicken shit. What we need is operational preparedness to do the job. And so you use the term corporate, and I to me, when people say corporate, which means of the body, right? So esprit de corps, the Marine Corps, I get that. I get the etymology of the word, but really when I hear corporate, especially when we say it the way we say it, I hear chicken shit. So we want to eschew the chicken shit in our operating procedures and our training and development. Right. Let's not get caught up on that nonsense. Okay, like how your tie's tied, or if you wear a tie, or anything like that. It's more about the real things. Okay, right. Like I don't care if they wear a black belt or a brown belt or black shoes or brown. I don't give a crap. But they need appropriate footwear. The pants can't be hanging off their ass. We want their shirts tucked in. But I don't care if they've got military creases and all that nonsense and stuff. So I don't want to digress too far down that pathway, but the bottom line is we have to have a measurement when we're talking standard operating procedures, training and development, of like inside this is the guardrails. Let's be inside there. Okay. If you want to exceed it, over here's the good stuff. If you want to go past that, knock yourself out. And that's the differentiator. That's the guy we're going to put him in our high tech commercial stuff. They're going to wind up our special services division. They're going to be in our termite crew, because that's that unicorn. But we want to make sure everybody that comes on board is inside the guardrails. If they go to the left of the guardrail there, we call that's below what's called irreducible minimums, and they don't get to stick around. And then we do that plank and spec. Was it us or is it them? And we always give them another opportunity, and we let them know this is part of our SOP. We explain to them, we have an SOP for this. Look, if this is happening, we're going to counsel them. We're going to do a coaching memo, which is just an email. And I received one this morning from one of our ACE. He's our technical service manager. He's an awesome young man. And he's like, hey, I've got these concerns with this guy, and this is what my plans are. And if it doesn't work, we're going to probably have to let this person go, because there's concerns I have for his safety, the welfare of our company and our clients. So, I mean, again, just being specific, we learn a lot from telling stories, right? So that's something that I just read that this morning. And so he followed the SOP, this young service manager who's in his 20s, guy kicks butt. He's super smart, but he follows the processes, but he also knows when I'm with somebody, I don't have to be, I gotta be his pal. Right. So that's something I don't know how to put that in an SOP. Hey, just be cool, man. So that's more about training and development outside of an SOP, just your countenance and stuff like that. But That's and no one's perfect. Ain't nobody perfect. What we think about when we're doing this stuff is not perfection. We're striving for excellence, right? We're striving for
Right.
above irreducible minimum. And by the way, if you want to shoot for the stars, you can, within the reasonable parameters. Okay, so a lot of that our SOPs talk about that, like how to make you talked about upsells and stuff like that. Well, a lot of upsells happen simply by paying attention. And we
Right.
do that during the training process. Hey, pay attention. What do you see here? Walk up to the house. What do you see? What do you see? What do you see? How are you going to address the customer? Well, watch me. And so we teach them that stuff as well. And
Right.
again, you put that in an SOP, but you say, now we have to demonstrate it. All of our SOPs operationally have a clause that say this standard operating procedure will be supported by classroom training, other standard operating procedures, and field training. Because it's never just, here's the SOP, read it. We're foolish if we think that that's all that's required.
Yeah, even when I do just basic, just simple biology training for Pest for new technicians, I reduced it down to maybe 5 things they need to memorize, that it's the most important.
Right.
Actually learn how to ID it. So what I don't do is I don't sit there and give them a PowerPoint on that pest and how to ID it, because what I found is it's totally useless. Like, I got my guy who brought me a ghost ant, the other day, and he said, "Man, it looks different than, and it was a ghost ant. It was,
Right.
Tapenoma melacephalum. It was just, that was it." And he was confused, but he can't, you're in the field. So what I try to teach them is, look, I can give you all this. What I want you to learn is, here's this little card with these little 5 basics. Here's how that insect's going to behave. Here's where you're going to find them. Here's what you observe. But I try to go in the field and try to find every one of those insects for them, so that they can actually visualize it in the field. Right. And I said, if you have an SOP, that's great, but it doesn't, I would put it, he has to go in the field. And what I try to do is find every single insect on every single stop. Let's go hunt for it. I know the neighborhood. I know what's there. I said, look, if we go down 2 houses down, chances are in that tree, we're going to see it. And I want you to see how they trail up and down and how slow they are compared to a ghost ant. I mean, to a crazy ant. We have a white-footed ant. This one's like, guys look buffy. You see the difference? And that's how I train, because this is a visual job. And it has for them to, I think of Paul Bello that says observational biology. Or was it or Bobby Corrigan?
Pete Chopin actually has been using that recently.
Yeah,
become an observational biologist. But all of them, we all say it in a different way. You're saying it, I'll say it.
Yeah.
I'm going to use I'm going to use his name, Dominic. He's our technical service manager. He's an ace, sharp young man. He again, we've got to go out there and see it. And again, the classroom's fine. Okay, and we're going to show them the top 10 ants in our area. But I don't think for a second they're going to memorize that from the classroom. And we even say that you're not going to get that. This is familiarization. We're letting you know what I spend the time. And again, not to get too wonky on the entomology here, I want to work on living arrangements. Where do these ants live? Do they live in a hole in the ground? Will they get into a void of a house? Are they a tramp ant? Will they move the colony? Your ghost ant's cousin, Tamponoma sessile, which is the odorous house ant, you should have that one in your area. It's pretty well distributed. That's our nemesis. And we tell the guys, if a customer has ants in the house, most of the time it's this ant. Okay. Yeah. It's not always this ant, but here's the deal. Here's the deal is if you consider that ant, you treat for that in the way we've taught you, you'll handle the rest of the ants because they're easier. Okay.
Exactly.
So same idea there. So it all fits together. And coming back to the point of SOPs, they're a guide. But what we do is for example, when it comes to ants, our SOP on that is, here are your first steps for ants. If you don't know what to do, if you do these things, we'll be happy with you. And the likelihood of you solving the problem for the customer, and this is not just ants, German roaches, rodents and things like that. If you do these first steps, and so by the way, it's a 1-page SOP for all these things. If you do these first things, we'll be happy with you. You'll have done your obligation and you make us all happy. We're real proud of you. Number 2, your likelihood of solving the problem, making the customer happy is at least 80%, and maybe more.
Yeah.
But you have to do these things. So but that's written down. And we refer to it all the time. Again, to keep this on the track of the standard operating procedures, we use the term, what does the SOP have to say about that? I gave a correction to a technician in Santa Fe yesterday. I was just doing a QA with them, and he was talking about, I've got this one commercial account,
I
and they're
love that.
having German cockroaches, and he's like, well, so yeah, the guy at the account thinks I'm supposed to come more often than monthly. I says, you are. I says, and actually, as soon as I got back to my computer after I live south by 45 minutes, I said, okay, here's the screenshot from the standard operating procedure. And this is a really good technician. He wasn't trying to get away with anything, but that what told me about this, and this is the whole point I'm telling the story, is even though you've created the SOP and you can point out and go, okay, you don't weaponize it. To say, by the way, you should have been taught this. You might have been taught this. You might have forgotten, or maybe we failed to teach that to you. Remember plank and spec. So I gave him a quick reminder. And by the way, we have to put our money where our mouth is. So again, I'm the technical director of a company with 60 people. Okay. I don't need to go out there with him, but I love this guy. Santa Fe there's 2 guys stationed up there, so they're a little lonely. I was up there to do some inspection and some quality time, one-on-one or one-on-two time with these 2 guys. And I said, I'm going to come up the next time you go to this restaurant. I'll come and see what you're doing. I bet I'll find a couple things that you're missing. And again, these are, we can't detail in the SOP all the specifics, like when you go to this restaurant, exactly where to go. I mean, we've got some general points in there. Like we know where most things are going to be. We can talk about small flies and drains and liquid crud and all that stuff. But the point of the SOP was, when you pop up with any pest here, it's a weekly visit till it's resolved. And he's like, oh. And I shared that with our commercial account manager, said, here's a reminder. So that's how it all fits together. So you have to live the SOP, and you have to give some grace, right? We can't go, you should have known that. Yeah, man, we got like 70 SOPs, man. And not everyone is accountable for every one of them. But the ones that they're dealing with, they have to be accountable. Go back to UROC, understand, retain, obey, and complain. Okay. And I'm not as a technical director till I retire. I'm not backing off. You better go to a commercial account weekly till the German roaches are solved. It's irrelevant why they're there or how they got there, but you're going to go there weekly till it gets taken care of.
Right.
Okay. And there's that. So, and again, if you fail to understand, if you're not comprehending it, ask questions. Well, that's another thing. We use this all the time. Dominic's, I'm going to keep using his name because he deserves these accolades. Raise your hand, man. Raise your hand. We're here to help.
Right.
We are deep and we're broad. We're lucky, and that's where my heart breaks for these smaller operators, because they don't have the depth and the breadth. Okay.
Yeah, that's the struggle, that they're wearing so many hats, and the like I had a person just call me where they hired a phone lady, a phone person, and it's a nightmare. All our accounts are messed up. All of the collections are not done. They're the accounts, and I said, did you spend any time with her? And, this is the way it's done. And then did you set up a system to monitor what she's doing? Are you listening to the phone calls? Are you going into the accounting at the end of the day and making sure why this is up? Like, I have 2 meetings right now with Eric a day, because we're in a place where I'm micromanaging this, because it seems like micromanagement, and guys would get upset. You're micromanaging him. I said, but understand that Eric and I have a 20-year relationship of working together. What I sit there with Eric, I said, okay, tell me what happened today and what did you run into? Where's the wall that you ran into? What's the problems? And then we sit there and I said, okay, let's look at it. Okay, let's do it. Let's try it this way. And let's try it that way. And then I'm documenting everything on Loom. I got Loom. So every meeting that we have, we record it. Because then I can go back. Oh, you go back to listen to that video that I did where I said that, because we're recording everything. So the problem is the time. They're frustrated because of the time that they don't have to be able to sit there and say, I can't babysit this person. I said, but that's not babysitting. That is part of the standard operating procedure for you as a manager now, because they don't know how to manage. You got to go into management now.
Yeah, well, leadership even. So I
like
I said, I believe in leading people, managing stuff, and that's the theme of the series we're doing with Maria, and the Marines taught us to be, you manage. There are things you manage. You manage logistics, you manage schedules, you manage assets and stuff like that. But you have to lead people. So what you're describing, Frank, and I love to hear that from you. And this is a lesson for those small operators that start on their own. Is they're like, oh, well, and I'm going to come back to my point here in a second. Well, we charge $100 for this pest control job, and I make 20 or 25. Well, if I own my own company, I could make 75. and until they meet the main line of resistance, which is what you just talked about.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have time for this. Of course you don't. Well, you know what? You'll have to make time, and
Yeah.
that's when people talk about the 16-hour days of the entrepreneur. That's where it lives. You have 8 hours doing the fundamentals, and you have 8 hours, and maybe 8 hours is extreme. Let's just say 2 or 3 hours. Let's take it into 10, 11-hour days.
Yeah.
Doing accounting, and then basically, setting up schedules, all that stuff, because no one's going to do it for you. Then you hire somebody, and the flaw that we make, and this is well documented. Oh, great. I don't have to do that anymore. So you talked about one side of the teeter-totter of micromanagement. The other side is what? Abdication.
Abdication. Yeah.
So what you're looking for, and let me use something.
Me and Paul spent an hour and a half discussing this the other day on the phone.
This is your teeter-totter, right? So the fulcrum, the balance point's right here at the guard there. So when you've got somebody new, and I got to stay in frame.
Yeah,
here,
there you go.
You've got to tip down towards micromanagement. When you've got somebody that's self-sufficient after you've trained them for whatever, it's 3 months, 6 months, 2, whatever, you can tip down a little towards abdication. Right in the middle, balance is what's called delegation, right? You've delegated to them, but what happens in the delegation is they clearly understand what they do, and they've agreed to do it. And until you get that understanding and agreement, you're going to micromanage. And if they don't like it, tough luck. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Demonstrate to me that you understand and agree, and I'll get off your back. But doesn't mean that I'm going to abdicate where you can't call me. Okay. I don't want to say, never call me. Don't bother me. It's your problem now. Once you say it's your problem, you've abdicated. You know that. Now it's your duty, your responsibility. And I'm giving you the authority, because really where micromanagement lives, which again wasn't the point of this conversation today. It's micromanagement when you've given them no authority that's consummate to their responsibility.
Yeah.
When they can't make a decision about a schedule, when they can't make a decision about dealing with a customer, when they can't make a decision, maybe making a purchase, within a certain, I've got a purchase card, and I'll make purchases of, a couple $1,000s as the technical director. But if I'm going to do a $30,000 pull, I'm not going to not let my general manager know. Okay. Because, I'm clear about that. And he doesn't even have to tell me that, because I'm a veteran. I understand it, having run my own company. But we can't ever assume those things, right?
Right.
So you have to set set those guardrails of, we stay here, and if you think you're going to go left or right of the guardrails, now you talk to me, and that's a great relationship. And it's funny because some people kick back, well, you're breathing down my neck. It says, okay, then you demonstrate to me, and this is always what I tell them, you demonstrate to me, you understand, and you will accept and agree to do the work, and you'll meet these KPIs, meet this expectation. Right. And if you do that, I got nothing to say.
Right.
Okay. And here's your authorities. And that, so again, kind of a sidekick off of standard operating procedures is job descriptions. Some people have absolute complete total ire towards job descriptions. And I'm going to keep going back to Lloyd Smigel. Well, you have to delegate, you have to explain to people what their roles and their goals are on their job description. And it should be one page. If it's more than, I don't care how sophisticated you think you are. If you have more than a one-page job description, you're going to fail.
Yeah,
okay,
it's too much to memorize. Yeah,
you ought to be able to know it. So you have Lloyd Smigel says you should have 1 to 3 goals. 1 to 3 roles, and then 1 to 3 goals underneath each role. Right. And sometimes all you need is 1 and 1. What is your role? You are a pest control technician, and your goals are. Number 1, customer service. Be nice to the customer. Show up on time. Be polite. Say thank you. Say please. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Read your notes. Number 2, execute on pest management operations as per your training in the label and the customer's desires, as long as that's not contrary to the first things, right? Yeah. And then number 3, financial expectations. Collect checks, collect credit cards, turn it in, have some financial things, and then the last one would be, and this could even be a different role, upsell. Okay. Upsell correctly, not dirty upsells, appropriate upsells that serve the customer and seeks a win-win-win. You win because you make a commission, right? You win because you add more to your job tomorrow or next week. The customer wins because you're showing them something that's going to help them. It's not something you want to sell them. It's something that you believe, or I like forget believe, that if you did this pest control wise, their life would be better.
Right.
And then, of course, the company realizes two things: an increase in reputation. That wow, what's the name of your company, Franklin? I'm sorry.
Nature Pest.
Nature Pest. Nature Pest. Wow, man, those guys from Nature Pest care about me. And every time I do something with them, not only are they dealing with what I was concerned with, they're seeing things for me, and it was important. Same thing, preventive pest control. And of course, and Ken Blanchard uses this term, you realize a financial gain or a profit, and profit is really just applause for a job well done, right? So you see all those wins, and this goes now. I'm going to go to some other psychobabble books. Stephen Covey, win or no deal. And so I always add a third win. Everybody wins. The technician wins, or the team member wins, the company wins, and the customer wins. And that's how. So those are an example of how you. And that's all you need. And I've watched guys make this ridiculously long job description, and it doesn't need to be that way. It needs to be really simple. Now, your SEO guy, okay, that's probably gonna be a little bit different. It's gonna be part of your job is to keep up in the latest trends and see what kind of nonsense Google is doing and blah 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 yada yada. I'm talking out my butt because I don't know what you guys do.
You're pretty accurate.
Yeah. Well, no, because
it's pretty accurate.
I mean, it's secondary and tertiary of observational knowledge. I just hear you guys talk about it all the time. I'm an old dog. I mean, most of my sales are as Harry Bryant would say, from nicest belly to belly. I built what I've done with the company just by. My job is to grow internally by serving our customer better, right, and not letting leakage. Again, I'll use Lloyd Smigel. I'm the stopper in the bathtub. I can be the spigot with the water pouring in. My job is to not let stuff leak out the bottom. And when it gets so full, my GM's job is to get us another bathtub so we can put the water over there. So we get more trucks, more guys, things like that. So anyway, it all fits together. And to me, the thing is, we have a battle plan. And to your point, like I said, these I feel, here these one-man operators. I would tell a one-man operator, if they're listening, if you guys listen here, here's the deal, man. Stay a one-man operator forever. Okay. Or make this leap and go to the next level and plan on having more and more people. It's these companies that sit there with 2 and 3 people. And I'm not saying they can't be successful. Please don't be insulted by my statement on here, but you're going to make your most money as a one-man operator. The only person you can blame for anything is you, right? You can't put it on anybody else within your organization. And then you're basically going to take a financial hit when you bring your first people on, and you use the term, 200,000, whatever, to get to the next employee. You're gonna see a significant drop in profits and money you could put in your pocket. And every time you turn around, it's going to be something else that's just sticking out its hand, that invisible hand, asking for money and time, right? But once you punch through and get to a dozen employees, and these processes are working, and everybody's on the right bus and they're in the right seats of the bus, it's magical. It's magical.
Yeah, no, I think foundations is where I find they're not there. Then we move on from foundations to actually growing the organization. And then people talk about, we can talk about scaling, because until you get to that point, it's really tough in a service business to scale. It isn't like we're selling software. We're not selling pictures on Etsy. This requires, every time you hire somebody, it's a massive investment. Just to get that new route going, and you got to keep feeding money into it. So, man, I appreciate. What's that event? Because go ahead and plug it. What's the event? What day is it?
Yeah, so we're going to hit the last weekend of April, I believe. I'd have to check, but I mean, I would definitely tag Maria on this. And get her to fill in the blanks. But I believe it's the last week in April, so it's the 27th and 28th. It's going to be up at her shop in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We talked about it yesterday. All this is pretty tight, but not perfect. She's going to invite people to come up early. We're thinking about having Paul Bell come up and do a workshop prior. This may be brand new news to him. I think I'm assuming she had a conversation with him. Paul can beat me up in March when I see him in Orlando, but I believe we're having him come out the days before. Okay. And then what we're going to do is try to parlay what Paul's going to teach, and then bring it into the workshop. And you may see this bouncing around Facebook. It's called Lead People Manage Stuff. This is going to be our third in a series, and it's progressive learning. So to my point of what I do, so we start off with the fundamentals of leadership. Then I talked about more sophisticated leadership and measurements. Now what I'm going to do, my role on this next one is going to be developing people, from onboarding through proficiency chart, what we do, and how leadership lives there. We're also having 2 other speakers involved. It's never just me. Pete Chopin was in on the first one. We have Michelle Coy, and she's going to talk about personality quadrants. She might have been on your show as well. She's got nothing to do with pest control, but she talks about so some of your DISC surveys and all that stuff. There's a lot of these personality things.
We're gonna have her on also to do a bookkeeping masterclass, because I know she's an
fantastic.
accountant. Yeah, yes. We're gonna have her on. So that's a great group. I mean, I love Maria. Tony. Say hi to him. Give him a big wet kiss for me.
Yeah. Kiss him on the bald head. No, I was up with them in Kalamazoo 2 weeks ago after the Purdue conference, and I actually got caught in that snowstorm, so I got to camp out. So I mean, first world problems. I had a food in my stomach and a roof over my head, and I just had to be patient. But anyway, and then the other speaker is actually, her name's Laura, and I forget her last name, but she's going to talk about, and she's a corporate onboarder, and so she's going to talk about interviewing prowess, and I think that's a lot of things that are missing. And we had dinner up in Kalamazoo 2 weeks ago, and I was so impressed by her. I said, Maria, I don't even know if I want to teach on this session. I think I just want to see her talk. But she says, no, you're not getting off that light. So Laura, so Michelle's going to kind of rewind and talk about personality quadrants. Right. If you're coming for the first time, what'll happen is Michelle will get you a way to do a personality assessment on your own. And then what happens, we'll talk about what that means, how you communicate with people, how you listen to people, how you behave, some of your positives and your negative traits, and how to improve upon those. Right. So we're going to review on that one. Then we'll have Laura come up, and Laura's going to talk about interviewing and onboarding, and determining how to ask better interview questions, because most people just suck at that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an expert, but I've learned a lot about just let people talk and ask open-ended questions. And then my thing is always about it's the long interview, so they're actually onboarded with the company. But my attitude is until we tell them they're really part of the company, they're like a probie or an apprentice, man. They're like a recruit, Yeah. Like, you join the Marines. You're not a Marine when you join the Marines. You're a recruit. Okay. Right. And some other bad names they call you. And until you graduate boot camp, you are not a United States Marine. And that's my attitude about coming on. Until you pass through all this, through this crucible, through the fire, and you're forged, you're really not a full-fledged member of this company. And I can't say enough about that. And I think we've got to realize that oftentimes, I work so hard to bring this person on. Yeah, but so you're basically going to hire them easy and then manage them hard. And what we think we need to do is interview hard, train them hard, try to literally, I mean, we're not making them do calisthenics and crawl on their belly through crap and stuff like that. We're not doing that. But dude, pay attention. What's this? What's that? To your point, what's that ant right there? I just showed you that last house. What's that ant? What's the descriptors that I gave to you? Okay. Where do you put your mouse traps in this person's garage? How many are we going to put out? You're drilling their ass constantly. And if they don't get it, you're like, hey dude, you got to get this or you got to go. Okay. And I
just had one that I hired me before this. I just hired one guy, and man, could not do the simple basics. I mean, I want to see you drive that truck.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, I want to see you back up into a space. I mean, literally, yes. He almost hit the truck twice. I said, you're done. I can't take a risk if you can't drive that well. So things like that. I'm a student of Winslow Taylor. Observational management, scientific management, basically, what we call today managing by wandering around. I just observe people in their process, and I said, if we can cut one step in this process that makes your life a lot easier, because I'm really looking out for the tech, because he's the one in the field, man. If I can cut one process for you that makes your life easier, makes you more productive, it'll make me more money, less fatigue for you. Everybody's happy. Win, win, win.
And to put a bow tie on that, you put that in the SOP. That's that complaint or correction that you do is like, hey, you know what? We're doing this, but that's nonsense. Let's get rid of that. Let's just shoot. And then you let the guys know, hey, by the way, on the bed bug SOP, remember how we used to use Sterafab on the mattress and stuff like that? Guess what? We found out we don't need to, so it's out of there. Okay, so we're just going to do this. And so, and again, this is not to be up or down on Sterafab or process. Again, I'm not here to argue those points. Those finer points are for individual operations. But what you do is your company has to agree upon it, right? And say,
Right.
this is what we're going to agree to do, and then just do it, right? So that's your point. And you tell MBWA, management by walking around. That's another Ken Blanchard out of the 1 minute manager, man. You have to go live it and experience it. And that's the thing that we can never forget. And I think gets forgotten. So we talked about smaller companies. The bigger companies, what happens is some of the big shots, they don't go in the field. And this one guy, Andrew Grease out of Arizona, called it, they don't go out there and pull hose, man. And they don't know what it's like to pull the hose. They don't know what it feels like in 120 degrees in Arizona, or 100 degrees and 100% humidity in Miami, or whatever the case might be, or freezing up in Taos, New Mexico. They don't understand those things. And so if you don't experience it, you won't understand it. And that all has to fit together. So SOPs are experiential. They're just not some wonk sitting in there. It better be somebody that has lived it. And in our company, I mean, I've written the lion's share of the SOPs, but anytime somebody's got a bright idea, oh, you want to do this? Great, write the SOP. Here's a model. This is pretty close. Use this as a model, and then I'll help you. I'm not going to abdicate it to you. I'm says you work on it. This is your bright idea. And they always go, oh, crap. I asked, yeah, you did ask for it, but I want you to think through the steps. Don't you say we oughta, or like somebody oughta, because that's American way. Somebody ought to do this. And I'm like, why not you, man?
Come to me with solutions, not problems.
Well, come to me. Well, come to me with the process. Come to me with the process.
The process.
Think about all the steps that it takes to deliver that service consistently and financially healthy, and then we'll do it. But don't just say we ought to do this, because again, put your money where your mouth is, man. Put your effort where your mouth is, and we'll do those things, right?
I mean, just from a very simple, because you mentioned that, do you have something like, just like, not the SOP, but here is like kind of like the outline we use, and what's like when I build a business plan, you know, I got to the point where I build 1-page business plans. If it was more than 1 page, it was too complicated.
Right. Absolutely.
And I had certain things that we had to put in there that made sense. And of course, everybody, you know, projections, what are you going to make? 10 million, you know, it's like, no, it's not realistic. Let's look at a realistic number. But an outline. If you wanted to get started with an SOP today, what would they start with? Like a template or something? What is a good one? Is there something out there that's good?
Yeah. So I started mine, and thank you for that question. That's a pretty cool question, and it made me rewind my brain to 20 years ago. What I did is I stole what's called a 5-paragraph order from the Marines. It's called SMEAC: Situation, Mission, Execution, Administration, Logistics, Command, and Signal. Now, not all that stuff applies, right? And it's not a battle, but okay. So I always start off with the situation is. Situation is basically why are we even writing this stupid SOP in the first place? Okay, so that just kind of that's the preamble, right? The mission is going to be okay. What's the finer points there, and then the most important part of any SOP is the E, the execution. That's where the 85% of the SOP is there. And then at the tail end, administration, command, and signal, I tie those together in like what other things support this? What other forms are we going to use, and what equipment's required? So that's administration, logistics, command, and signal. That goes at the bottom, and that's usually a very small amount of it. It's usually execution, but that's how we do it. And to your point, 95% of recipes are 1 page. Anything longer than that, and the funny part is, I will go to a second page because I'll try to bring the type down. You know, once I try not to go below like 9 point Times New Roman, because then it's just ridiculous. But I don't want to just like, okay, I give myself that page because I'm like, look, if it's more than that, I probably have to break it up. But there are a couple, like our bed bug flows into 2 pages. We have our longest one, 6 pages, and that's for integrated pest management in sensitive facilities and environments. It has a lot to cover. So I just put that together. And then what we do, like, for example, our WDO operations, including real estate examinations, I think we've got 12 standard operating procedures that tie in with that, but they're broken up into chunks. So one is going to be documenting on a graph. One's going to be basically making an EPLI application, exterior perimeter limited interior application, utilizing, whatever termiticide. And when that's appropriate, when it's not, we have one on integrated termite control using baiting. And then of course, when we get to the tail end, it says, well, by the way, we have a service agreement, and that service agreement needs to be reviewed as part of the training. So I'm not going to rewrite everything on the service agreement, let it speak for itself. Same thing with filling in an inspection form. We've created our own WDO inspection forms for real estate. So we'll use an NPMA 33 for the meat, but then we have supporting documents, and so we have an SOP on that one. So, and it explains why we use the form, why we feel that NPMA 33 is insufficient. how to capture photos, how to caption the photos, right? And why we have certain codes or legend on our thing, what they mean. So DDD, what does that mean? Well, drywood termites, and this means, XXX means subterranean termites. And we've got that in the SOP, but then it's also on the page. So it's all integrated. So that gives you a little bit of an idea on the outline. And for your listeners, anybody who I'm always happy to send some samples to anybody who's not in direct competition. So I mean, if you're in Greater Albuquerque, Santa Fe, I'm not gonna provide these for you because you're in direct competition with me. I don't think that's unfair.
No, it's perfectly fair.
And so, but if you're in like rural New Mexico, I'll send one. I'll send you some samples, and you tell me what you're interested in, and I'll say, okay, here's what I've got, right? So don't ask me about SEO because I don't have one. Ask Franklin, okay? But what I'm getting on mine is, if you want to understand this, I'll send you 2 or 3 and say, here, use these as a model to your point of the question. And great, just change it, okay? Just change it and make it work for your company. And then if you're really interested in buying our entire suite, then I sell that an entire thing. And there's a bunch of other supporting documents.
Right.
But
are you doing coaching? Are you doing
yeah,
coaching?
I'm doing coaching and consultation a lot. Again, most of my teaching is either leadership or technical stuff. And training and development. That's what I work on. Okay. And so I'm available for hire. Right now it's through Preventive. Actually, my retirement date is 31 July.
Really? Congrats.
Will be my last full-time day. And I'll probably still be affiliated with Preventive. Because again, there's no way that I would sell our SOP packet, as my own stuff. I mean, I wrote it, most of it, but it's property of Preventive, and they know I'm doing it. So, but that money just goes to Preventive. And I'm like, and honestly, the amount I charge based on the time that people would take just to get to the fundamentals of this one, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer to make that purchase. And I think it's affordable, and they not only do they get SOPs, they get our latest onboarding packet, which is all of our policies and procedures. It's basically all of our check sheets for training. They get our table of equipment. This is what we assign the guys to, their materials. We've got our basic training. We've got just dopey little follow along, fill in the blank tests, and we give them certain SOPs that's their fundamental SOPs, things along that line. So they get a lot of material for not a lot of money. And again, it's not my big business model. I didn't come on here to sell that. If people choose to pursue me, you've got my contact information if you want to put that on.
Yeah, if you want to, want to say it. I mean, I don't have a problem. Yeah. People tell people how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I'll repeat it so people can get something to write with here, but it's very simple. My first name, Alan, ALAN. There's no fat on that. ALAN at ppcabq.com. That's for Preventive Pest Control Albuquerque.com. Phonetically, Papa Charlie, Alpha Bravo Quebec.com. That's how you reach out to me and say, hey, man, I'm interested in this. I'll send you a couple of samples. And if you buy nothing from me, I'm okay. I'm really what the Lord calls me to now is I want to see people win. I don't like to see people get frustrated. I love this industry has been really, really good to me. You know what I'm saying? When I retire, I'll be at 36 and a half years. I've been very blessed to be part of it. I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about the world. It's been an adventure. And honestly, a lot of my retirement is just to get my ass out of the way of other people's heads so they can climb up the ladder. And I'm just trying to step aside. And it's good to do that. I've had my glory days, and I really want to watch other people. I'm in love with 20 and 30 something people that are coming up in the industry that really care about it. And there's a change. I'm also a little bit of an anachronism. I'm kind of an old fud sometimes. Like, what I think is important is probably less important than I think it is. And so I think I have to have an open mind. So I think that a young guy like Dominic or, like Pest Pros, a young woman like Amber, who's their lead pest, she's got some great ideas. And I keep following. I love watching these young people as they post things. They're Christian out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
And this young lady, Jasmine, I think she's out of upstate New York. And I just love watching what they're doing. And they seem to have got the principles and the fundamentals down, and they seem to be really cool people. And there's probably another 100 people that I failed to name that deserve the same recognition from an old veteran like me. Going, I will like what you kids are doing if you're honest and have high integrity. And man, I'm your friend. There's plenty of room. And even in Albuquerque, man, I teach all the time, and I share in the classrooms. I tell them all my secrets. This is how we do it. And if you do it, it'll work for you. And you know what? If it's too much for you, send it over. We're the big 500-pound gorilla in the market, and we'll play nice. We don't want to beat you down as long as you have high integrity. If you don't have integrity, again, as the Marines would say, no better friend, no worst enemy. I'm on your side until you lie to people, you know, and I don't want to go on that diatribe. I have no tolerance for that kind of stuff. It's antithetical and it's just dishonest, and I have no room. So I won't help you. I will oppose you. I will give you a chance to correct yourself. And if you correct yourself, I'll be on your side. But that's my thing. It's probably a little bit too much of a
no, I mean, that's the same thing I do. I mean, I've been preaching that forever. I've even got people mad at me on the podcast saying I didn't listen to this podcast to get a lecture on morality. Well, tough.
Well,
there's plenty of other podcasts you can listen to. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you. So brother.
I mean, it's all morality and ethics to some degree are subjective, but there are things that are pretty clear. We know what the right thing to do is in telling people lies or selling them something or scaring the crap out of them to buy something, or then not doing the job and not standing behind it. I mean, forget the morality. That's pretty objective. Yeah. And again, here's the thing: if you make a mistake, I'm not upset with mistakes. No, I ain't perfect. I ain't gonna sit here and say, I'm not gonna tell you I haven't drilled into a water line. I can't tell you that I didn't do something correctly or I didn't create a misunderstanding. But the bottom line is, are you gonna fix it? And if you're gonna fix it, I'm gonna step aside, let you fix it, and that's the way that's gonna go. But you build relationships in your market and you call people, said, hey, this is going down, and I'm as an ace, I'm held to an ethical standard. If somebody calls me, well, you're working with this company. Well, have you talked to them? Well, here's the thing. I'm charged to let them know. Here's my concern, and so I'm going to let them know because this is my friend. I know this person, and I want them to make it right. Now, if they don't, I mean, I'll come back, but I want you to give them an opportunity to make it right. And I'd say 90% of people are like, well, says, so you can help me. Says, yeah, I'm going to call them and let them know. Here's what's going on, and here's what I'm seeing, and maybe you missed it. Work on that, okay? And that's that. But if they've told them a lie, I don't give them another chance. You know, when they install Centricon stations for drywood termites, no, okay. And I'm saying, no, that's abjectly wrong. You need to get your money back. And there should be no doubt here. That's actually a violation of the state regulation, and it's got no hope of working. So why would I sugarcoat that at all? So there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree. You also do, just to give you another plug, because I know that you do it. You're still doing the ACE training.
We finalized that masterclass this last Saturday.
Okay.
And so that started on the first Saturday of October. We ran 2 hours a week with like 2-week breaks for the holidays, and we culminated it this last Saturday. So we're done with that. And I don't think I'm going to train that again because I mean it started strong, and actually I think people gave up on it at the end. It was so we wound up with the last couple. Yeah, it's hard to hang in there, and I again, I have no choice but to use this format, this Zoom format. I mean, me flying down to
Did
Florida,
you record them?
into Zoom. I recorded them last time, and I didn't want to.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we can talk, but I mean, I'm willing to. If you got it and you've got it recorded, I mean, we've got the platform for our academy that we're putting it on. If you feel like putting it on there, and let me know.
Yeah, I do it on the caveat. I don't think I did a good job recording, and I think the software is kind of latent. You know what I'm saying? Because I just basically I recorded it on our Zoom platform, and there's some mismatch, and it vexes me. It's not like I'll be talking and it's still a slide behind, and it really is so it's available, but I'm not proud of what the technology captured. And that's why I didn't do. Yeah. What was that?
If you decide you want to do this, the easiest thing to use in the world, and it works awesome with no hitches. Loom. LOOM. Anybody who wants to record on screen, what I do is I use Loom, or I use actually this. I'll use Zoom here, and I'll create a session, and I just record on a Zoom session.
Well, that's what I did.
Nobody's there. Yeah. But
I did mine live.
Is on. Loom actually has both. It has a web base, but it also has the app you download to your computer locally in case your internet's bad. It's an amazing product. I mean, it's so simple to use. It's like industrial strength stupid. How easy it is, you know.
Well, I'll say something that I've learned through maturity is I'll take all the recommendations and all the help I can get to be successful in life. I'll look into that, and if it's something that fits there. But yeah, it was again that was a lot of material. I think we had a total of 24 to 28 hours of instruction. I basically walked people right through Truman's Guide from Purdue University. We went through the entire thing, tied it in with the ACE study guide, and of course some other external things, and a lot of stories and things that we encountered as well. And we had to move along. But yeah, man, anything I can do to help, I will. If we can do another, if we can do something else, man. Frankly,
man,
I love what you're doing, man.
I've been trying to get you on this podcast for at least 5 years. You had my number saved from the last conversation we had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this was pre-COVID. We talked about something I can't remember, but I remember.
I remember, but I don't know if you want to bring it up here. But I'll leave that alone.
I remember the topic. So
yeah,
but we just happened to. I remember kind of pacing around. I was agitated about something. I don't remember.
You were. I remember exactly what it's about. Yeah, it was about the. Yeah, never mind. It was about termites in the industry.
Let's leave that, because it's again I don't think it's helpful. I mean, to vent's fine. I forget why we talked, but the bottom line though is I'm like aiming for the positive right now, because again, when something bad happens, our sermon this weekend is don't live in victimhood. It happened, move past it, and so I like to do that. And again, you forgive, and you remember. Okay, well, I'm still going to be cautious. Okay. It's called innocent as doves, shrewd as vipers. Right. And so I want to be cautious with that stuff. But the bottom line is I'd rather be positive about stuff than acrimonious.
Yes.
And say, and you heard what I had to say. Like, I have no tolerance for people telling lies and dishonoring their agreements with people. Because that hurts our industry. It makes us look like a bunch of chumps. So I will fight for that, but I'll take that case by case. Right. I'd rather say, here's a lot of good things that are going on in the industry, and I want to encourage people to go in that direction. And people like you, and I mean, again, the list goes on and on, that are trying to say, the legacy we're trying to leave is saying, I don't, it doesn't benefit me to do a lot of what I do when it comes to this development. I'm not getting rich off of it. I don't want to get rich off of it, because that tests why I do it. Now I want to be kept whole. So I want to be compensated for travel. I want to get for my time, but I have no need for the money, because again, the industry has been good to me. And but what does my heart well is to see people win. And again, and you got to listen to these people that have been around and watch them win. So
you're hanging around, and I wish I had more time to do the traveling. I will soon. But I mean, you're Maria, up there in Michigan. You've got Doug Foster. You've got Paul Bello. You've got you. Just Pete Chopin, just an incredible bunch of people with just a ton of integrity.
Absolutely.
And they've built huge businesses, some bigger than others, but it can be done with it. But people think, you gotta, stick it to somebody in order to grow and I say, no, none of these people, I've met them. That's not happening. So I think that if you want to, hey, go to those events, go to the Paul Bello conferences, go to stuff you're in. I just wish there was more promotion of these things. Like Pete is really going out there and doing his thing with the people he's consulting. If that's a guy that I can sit down with and learn more than I ever think I need. I want to. But that's it. Just hang around those kind of people that are successful, that are growing it with integrity. And it might be a little harder, but you'll be home.
Well, so the next session I like to do with you, if you care to have me back, is
brother.
Use the word integrity. There's actually a selling process that I was blessed to learn from my last boss. His name was Bruce Carter, with Carter Services out of Farmington, New Mexico, and it's called integrity selling. And there's no gimmicks to it. It's really pretty much to summarize, selling is what you do for your customers, not to them. And it's a process. I've actually I've edited it down. If you'd like to have me back on,
brother,
I think it would be valuable to be prepared to put some graphics up. So you allow me to share some stuff, but we can do that. And then obviously I know the Pest Geek podcast. Like when I listen to it, I don't see it. I just hear it. So unfortunately, that would be lost. So I'd have to work really hard to kind of describe what I'm showing. But for those that would come on and see the video side of it, we can show some of the descriptors that come in there. And again, I don't mean to steal. I mean, it's kind of a copyrighted program, but I think the principles apply. So Correct. I'm not going to go in there and say, oh, I'm not teaching it rogue. I'm saying here's the principles, and we can use that for both external customers and internal customers. And it can also, coming full circle to the SOP idea here, you put that inside of all your ideas, right?
Oh,
It's all,
that's
it's all a
talking
process. You're talking your
90%.
language.
Yeah, 98% of my audience is right up their alley, because
There you go.
that's one of the things they struggle with is sales. They don't come
Yeah.
from the sales. I mean, 98%
Yeah.
of people that listen to me are
Yeah.
solo operators that came off a truck.
Well,
That's the
and
reality.
yeah, and to not go too far down the sales rabbit hole, anybody can sell. Okay.
Yeah,
And that's part of integrity selling is what's your view of selling. Anybody can sell, and you're not doing something to somebody. And it's not this used car salesman garbage.
yeah,
You're not trying to convince somebody to do something that they don't need or want.
yeah,
Your job is to identify what they need or want by listening to them and building a relationship. It's a relational
yeah,
sales, not transactional sales.
yeah,
And again, there's a time for transactional sale. I don't need to get in a relationship with somebody who's going to, basically ring me up for a big gulp and a Snickers at the Circle K.
right,
But if I'm going to have somebody become my plumber, I want a relation with that plumbing company. When I call, they understand that what they do is important. Then showing up on time and being prepared is
right.
important. And there's so much to be learned for us in pest control. I think sometimes we make the mistake of believing we can just have a transactional experience with our customers. Oh, I like to kind of, I heard something at a conference. Oh, I hate when the customer's home because then I have to deal with them. I'm like, oh
Yeah,
boy, now we got a problem. And unfortunately, they got that someplace. They didn't just, when the technician might've made it up in their mind, but I bet they got that from somebody that had some level
yeah,
of authority over them. And so they got that idea that it's better to the customer's not there. I get it. It's sometimes there's less, stickiness in the operational thing. So it does add a little bit of complexity and nuance to the,
yeah,
to the efficiency. However, it's hard to fire Franklin or Allen. It's really easy to fire some company that sends you an invoice and hits your credit card. So
yeah,
there's a balance in there somewhere. That's where I'm an old FUD, right? I'm kind of like, I think it's important to meet Mrs. McGillicuddy and Mrs. Sanchez and all that stuff and get to know them and find out what they're all about and become part of the family. Not like, don't insinuate yourself into their family in a
of
reasonable,
course.
creepy way, but hey, I care about you. I'm looking in the eye.
Yeah,
I'm paying attention that you're bothered by this, and this is
yeah,
what I'm going to do about it. And I'll come
yeah.
back
I
if
mean,
you need
our
me.
time to
Yeah,
shine is always when there's a problem.
yeah, absolutely, man.
Because that's when we show up, and we have a guy who we did an exclusion job for, and it looks like he had a ton of rats. He was dealing with it. We excluded it, we sealed it, and it looks like they stayed under there because we couldn't get them out
Mm,
in time. He wanted it done quickly, and then they were in the house. So hey, what did I
yep,
do? Hey man, you know what? You're my customer. You've been my customer
yep,
for 6 years. The rodent job is free. I mean, we're just going to catch
yep,
them for you. And I
yep.
told my guy, go in there with a vacuum and all that,
Clean up all the gunk. Yep.
clean it up
Make them whole.
and make them happy. Um,
Yep.
that's it, brother.
That's it.
I thank you, man, for being on. I call me back anytime you want to be on. Just drop
Yep.
me a line and say, hey, it's open. I mean, I wish more people did this and actually came on, because
Mm,
first, it makes my job easier. I don't have to do anything.
yep.
Uh, I don't have to
Well,
do a monologue. But no, I mean, the experience, the inspiration, what you bring to the table,
mhm,
is fantastic. And I
yeah,
wish more people like you
yeah,
would get the courage to get behind a microphone and a camera, because a lot of it is just a fear of being behind a microphone and a camera. But if you can get over that, um,
yeah,
and you got something to offer.
yeah.
By the way, everybody who's at that conference has been on my podcast. There's not anybody that isn't there. I think that you're going to be at that hasn't been on
Mm,
this podcast.
yeah.
So
Well, maybe before April, we get Marie on here and maybe some of the other co-conspirators for that thing, and we do a little primer for the April thing. And because I think multi-person conversations are way more interesting than
of course.
monologues.
Well,
I
the
I
thing
lose
is,
right.
the thing is, I'm Cuban, so I got ADHD, and I talk to myself. I mean, my fiance is like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm saying,
Yeah.
"Nobody. I'm talking to myself. I'm working on my presentation."
No, I'm totally in the lane with you on that one. But I think
uh,
when we have situations like
yeah,
this, and it's a great way to get information out, and I think you get other points of view,
of
and
course.
that's great value. And like I said, I think anybody that would take a moment to listen, and they can go, okay, that's a good idea. And what I always hope for through these things, that people take a next step and follow up and go, hey man, I'm interested, yeah, send me some SOPs. I'd like to do that. Remember Alan at ppcabq.com. and just send me an email, and I'll just tell me what you're interested in. I'll send it to you. And if I don't have it, I'll be honest with you, I don't have something that's specific on that. But the bottom line, though, is I want to see people take next steps, because there's such a wealth of information out there.
There is.
And it's just an honor. And thanks for having me out. And
No, my pleasure,
we'll
brother.
go from there, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, man. God bless you, dude.
God bless you, brother.
Walking in the light. See you later.
Later.